Your brain doesn't break. How to learn effectively and without stress. Why should we even learn? Imagine you are a spy who needs to learn a new language in 3 days to infiltrate a secret laboratory. Or you are a scientist who needs to memorize thousands of formulas to save the world. Sounds like a movie plot? Now imagine you are just an average person who wants to learn a foreign language, master a new profession, pass an exam, or just become smarter. And suddenly, your brain refuses to work. Your memory feels overloaded, your thoughts are in a fog, and studying feels like running in space without a spacesuit. But what if I told you that your brain doesn't break? That it is always ready to learn, and even if it seems like you can't remember something, it's a flaw in your approach, not in you. Today, we'll figure out how to learn effectively, how not to burn out your brain, how to use your strengths, and why stupidity is a myth. Chapter 1. The brain is not a computer, but a whole ocean. Have you ever wondered how many neurons are in your brain? 86 billion. That's more than in any supercomputer, and each one can be connected to thousands of others, creating a network that is as good as the internet. But unlike a computer, the brain is not just a processor. It is an organ with memory, emotions, imagination, fears, and dreams. Imagine your brain is a miner digging a path through the sand of memories, the concrete of knowledge, the ice of emotions, and the forest of associations. Sometimes it gets stuck, sometimes it loses its way, and sometimes it strikes gold. But it is always working, even when you're sleeping, thinking about love, or just scratching your nose. Marina, a student from Novosibirsk, thought she had a bad memory. She spent hours memorizing a single paragraph, only to forget everything the next day, like a dream. But it turned out that it was all about the strategy. How does the brain store information? The brain doesn't store information like a hard drive. It creates connections, chains, associations. It's as if you don't just read a book, but build an entire city from it. Every word is a building, every sentence is a street, and every chapter is a district. And if you want to find something, you need to know where it is located, not just try to remember what was there. Sergey, an engineer from Moscow, came up with the City of Knowledge method. He turned textbooks into virtual cities, where formulas were houses, theorems were streets, and laws of physics were bridges. And suddenly, he found that memorizing became easier, more interesting, and much faster. The myth of a bad memory. How many times have you heard, "I have a bad memory, I'm incapable of learning, I don't have enough IQ"? These are myths, myths, myths. Memory is not an innate talent, but a skill that can be developed. It's like knowing how to ride a bike. You weren't born with it, but you learned it, and now you can ride without thinking. Anna, a teacher from Riga, thought she was incapable of learning languages. But after one mnemonics training session, memorization, using associations, she learned German in 3 months. How? She turned words into stories. House wasn't just house, but a house with a cat singing in a choir. And suddenly everything was memorized. Chapter 2. Why does the brain resist learning? Now let's figure out why you might feel incapable of learning. It's not because you're stupid. It's because your brain is afraid. The brain is not just logic, but also emotions, fears, habits, expectations. It can sabotage learning if it feels that this threatens your comfort. Imagine you are riding on a train and suddenly you are asked to change seats. You might resist, complain, think it's unfair. But in reality, the new seat might even be better. It's the same with learning. The brain doesn't like change, but change is useful. Alexei, a designer from Kazan, was afraid to learn programming because he thought it wasn't for him. But after the first few lessons, he suddenly understood that programming is like design, only with numbers. And now he creates applications, not just logos. Fear of failure. The main enemy of learning. Fear of failure is like a speed limiter that prevents you from accelerating. You could go fast, but you keep thinking, what if I make a mistake? What if it doesn't work out? What if I'm stupid? But you know what? Even great minds made mistakes. Einstein didn't speak until he was 3. Darwin thought he had a bad memory. Jobs dropped out of college. Mozart faced rejection. A mistake is not a failure, but a chance to learn. It's like a video game where you don't lose if you fall into a trap, but gain experience to move further. Olga, a psychologist from Minsk, shared a story. She was afraid of public speaking. She trembled, forgot words, felt like a fool. But after dozens of failures, she understood each time is an experience. And now she gives lectures, writes books, and inspires others. Chapter 3. How the brain overloads and how to reboot it. Did you know that the brain can overload, like a smartphone when too many tabs are open? Just imagine you're reading a textbook, watching a video, listening to a podcast, taking notes, solving problems, replying to messages, all at the same time. And suddenly silence. The brain shuts down, doesn't want to work, forgets everything, gets tired. It's as if you were trying to run 100 programs on a phone with 2 gigabits of RAM. The solution? Just close the extra tabs. Focus, one task at a time. Dmitry, a student from Petersburg, tried to learn 5 languages simultaneously. He read 10 books, listened to 5 podcasts, watched 20 lessons a day, and forgot everything. Then he decided 1 language per month. The result? He learned 5 languages in 5 months, not in 1, and remembered everything. Methods for rebooting the brain breaks, like a pause in music, so you don't get tired. Sleep, like a night in a hotel, to recover. Physical activity, like charging a battery to get the current flowing. Meditation, like silence, to hear yourself. Proper nutrition, like fuel, to keep going. Ekaterina, a programmer from Ekaterinburg, worked 12-hour days, didn't rest, didn't sleep, and forgot everything. She thought this was normal. But after 1 day of sleep, she solved a problem that she couldn't solve for 2 weeks. Chapter 4. How does the brain remember? And why repeating doesn't always work. We often think, to remember, you need to repeat. But this is not always true. Repetition is like a shallow groove that doesn't always EDCH deeply into memory. The brain remembers what evokes emotions, associations, images. It's like a movie, not a dictionary. Maria, a student from Kiev, couldn't remember formulas. She read them 100 times and still forgot them. But then she invented stories. Einstein's formula became a story about an apple that falls in space. And suddenly everything came back to her. Effective memorization techniques, mnemonics, turning information into stories, images, rhymes. Method of loci, memorizing in familiar places. Spaced repetition, repeating with pauses so you don't forget. Explaining to others, like a rehearsal to reinforce. Game-based learning, like an adventure so you don't get bored. Anton, a scientist from Novosibirsk, memorized 1,000 Chinese words in 2 months. How? He created a virtual world where each word was a character and all the characters were interconnected. And now he speaks Chinese like a native. Chapter 5. Why stupid questions are smart questions. Have you ever been afraid to ask a stupid question? Afraid that you would look like a fool. But you know what? There are no stupid questions. There are only unasked questions. Questions are like a shovel that digs deeper to find the truth. And the deeper you dig, the more you find. Lyudmila, a teacher from Almaty, never asked questions because she feared judgment. But after 1 lesson where students started asking questions, she suddenly realized that everything she thought she knew was not so simple. And now she learns from her students and becomes better. Chapter 6. How the brain learns best. The brain is not a machine, but an organism that responds to the environment, mood, interest, motivation. The brain learns when it is interesting, not boring, useful, not pointless, understandable, not obscure, pleasant, not torturous, realistic, not fantastical. Igor, a trainer from Moscow, made lessons fun. He turned formulas into games, knowledge into fairy tales, and learning into an adventure. And suddenly all the students started learning with pleasure. Chapter 7. How the brain recovers from stress. Stress is like a storm that sweeps everything away, including memory, attention, thinking. But after the storm, everything can be restored. The brain is not glass that shatters, but wood that grows, even if it's pruned. Evgeny, a psychologist from Kiev, told a story. He worked with people who couldn't learn because they had been through trauma. But after working with emotions, meditation, support, they started learning again. Chapter 8. How the brain learns with pleasure. Pleasure is the best teacher. If you feel joy when learning, the brain remembers faster. It's like music that inspires. Alice, a designer from Tbilisi, started learning programming just out of interest. She wasn't thinking about a job, wasn't afraid of mistakes, was just playing. And suddenly she created an application that thousands of people loved. Chapter 9. How the brain helps you be yourself. The brain is not just an organ, it is your inner voice that helps you be yourself. You don't need to be like everyone else. You don't need to learn like everyone else. You need to learn like you. Victoria, an artist from Baku, couldn't learn in school because everything was wrong. But at home, at her own pace, using her own methods, she became talented, confident, successful. Chapter 10. How the brain helps you grow. The brain is not a final product, but a tool that helps you grow, develop, become better. Every day is a chance to learn something new. Remember it, apply it, become smarter. Pavel, an engineer from Omsk, thought he already knew everything. But after one lesson on neuroscience, he suddenly realized that his brain is a whole world and he can explore it. Finale. The brain doesn't break. It grows. The brain doesn't break. It can get tired, confused, doubtful, but it is always ready to learn. You don't need to be a genius. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be afraid. Just start. Try. Believe. Your brain is your ally. It will help you. Practical tips: how to start learning effectively today. Start small to 10 minutes a day, not 10 hours at once. Use associations, turn everything into stories. Take breaks, don't push your brain. Sleep, the brain works even when you sleep. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Mistakes are experience. Ask questions, don't stay silent. Study with interest, don't force yourself. Use spaced repetition, don't cram. Explain to others like a rehearsal. Believe in yourself. Your brain is capable of anything. Conclusion: you are not stupid. You just didn't know how to learn. You are not stupid. You are not dumb. You don't have a bad memory. You just didn't know how your brain works, how it learns, how it remembers. Now you know. Now you can. Your brain is your superhero, and it is ready to learn now, right now. Why this video is worth rewatching. This is not just a lecture, but a journey into your brain. These are not just tips, but scientifically proven methods. These are not just words, but tools that work. This is not just learning, but inspiration. Subscribe so you don't miss new videos. Like if you found this useful. Share if you want to help others. Write in the comments what you want to learn next.